Our next speaker, our next beautiful speaker who's going to be sharing with us and is coming from the other side of the world to join us this morning. If any of you joined us for the Sales Bootcamp last year, you got a little taste, a beginning taste of what Andrea can bring to the table for us. And so we're super, super excited to have her joining us today. Let me just give you a little bit of an intro. So Andrea is, of course, the co-founder of Courage Crafters and co-author of the best-selling book that we heard one of our speakers mention earlier on, Go for No. Everyone loves the sound of the word yes. It's so positive, so empowering. And then there's no. For most people, no is just the opposite. Negative, draining, a small two-letter word that has the power to literally stop people dead in their tracks. But what if everyone's wrong? What if you could completely change the way you think about no? Our next speaker believes that you can. Andrea, as I said, co-author of the best-selling book, Go for No, is going to share a way to help you reprogram the way you think and feel about the word no and empower you to develop the courage to achieve outrageous sales and personal success. And from my personal perspective, this is a book that I gifted to many of my team when I was in the field, and we had so much fun with going for no. So let me spotlight our beautiful Andrea and welcome her to the table today. Thanks, Andrea. Great to have you here, darling.
Thank you, Celine. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the word no. And I know that yes is very important. Don't get me wrong. I understand. That's why the subtitle of the book is Yes is the destination, no is how you get there. And so obviously it is so important to have those yeses, but no is really how you get there. And that brings me to kind of the interesting thing about the book. If you've had a chance to read it, Go for No is a fable. And it's about a guy who wakes up one morning in a fabulous house, but he has no idea how he got there, and he doesn't know who the house belongs to. But he does know that he's going to figure it out. And so what he does is he starts kind of inspecting the house and walking around, and he discovers that this house belongs to a wildly successful future version of himself. How weird would that be to meet yourself 10 years in the future and get to see this wildly successful you, right? But here's the trick. The tricky part is he doesn't understand, how did this version of him 10 years in the future get so successful? What is the secret? And the secret, as it turns out, is that this version of him learned to go for no. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Is we're going to talk about the power of no. I'm going to share my screen here and pull up some slides that I have prepared for you all because it's really important. I want you to have the visuals, and you don't have to be super crazed about taking notes. I can get the PDF of this to Celine, but let's think about this in this framework. Let's not let no stand between us and success. What's the best thing that can happen? Well, one yes can change everything. So here's what we're going to talk about. 5 strategies. Developing your NQ. That is your no quotient. Changing your emotional reaction to yes and no. Understanding SW, 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 SW. We'll talk about that. Learning to value no, and as Christy talked about, and I love that she brought this up, never making assumptions. So let's talk about NQ first. Your no quotient is far more important than your IQ or your intelligence quotient. Now, I know that you all have some amazing products, and there's science to back up these products, and there's nutritional information, and there's important details. And I think sometimes we get caught up in thinking that we have to know every nook and cranny about the product and everything about the business. And the reality is that your NQ is far more important than anything else. Your NQ is the number of times you are willing to hear no and keep going. And that number is powerful. Now, What is your no quotient? Don't do this now. I need you guys to stay with me. But we have created a 20-question assessment on our website at Go for No. Don't leave. Don't go flood it. But you can find out what your no quotient is. What are your thoughts, feelings, and kind of beliefs about failure, about rejection, and about hearing the word no? We want to increase our no quotient, our willingness to hear no and keep going. So the rest of the strategies are kind of going to focus on that, because here's the thing. We have all been taught and trained to operate with kind of an old model when it comes to failure and success. And I described this model at the Sales Bootcamp. I talked about it, where you're in the middle and failure and rejection is on one side and success and the yes is on the other. And we think we have to make a choice. We think we have to choose to either succeed or fail. But the reality is that we're on one side. Failure, rejection, hearing the word no is in the middle. And the success that we're seeking, the yeses, are on the other side of us. So what it ends up looking like, it kind of has turned into, as Richard and I have discovered teaching this over all of these years, it has developed into this pyramid. And I want to take you through these 5 levels of failure. I'm sure you didn't know that there are actually 5 levels of failure. That seems kind of crazy. And as we go through these in the chat, if this resonates with you, if you feel like you've reached this level, just type in yes. So the first one is going to be the easy one for you guys, because the first one is the ability to fail. This is where we all start. 100% of us, we have the ability to fail, right? We start as children, we learn to walk, we hit our head on the coffee table over and over again. And we don't just lay there and say, well, you know, I've hit my head on the coffee table so much. I have a headache. I'm just going to let them take care of me for the rest of my life, right? No, we get up and we keep going. That's that persistence, that ability to push through obstacles is literally built into our DNA. It's built into the DNA of all animals. All animals, when they're born, think about little chicks breaking out of the shell. Think about even the transition of caterpillars turning into butterflies. They have to burst through that shell. That is how we build that resilience. So it is built into us from a young age. But here's the next level. This is where it gets really interesting. Level 2. This is the willingness to fail. And hopefully on the Sales Bootcamp, if you attended, you bought into this with me now. You decided that, you know what, I am willing to hear no a little bit more often. I am willing to go out and sell in a courageous manner, meaning, and my definition of courageous selling is where you care more about sharing your opportunity and these fantastic products with people than you do about protecting yourself from hearing the word no. That's courageous selling. So if you can get to the willingness level, and I have found about 20% of the people get to the willingness. It's a little hard, but usually it happens when they read Go for No, they read the book, and they read the story about the guy who learns that the secret of how this future version of himself became so successful, they reached the willingness level. So I'm hoping, and I'm looking at the chat to see who's reached the willingness level here. I'm hoping that I've got most of you on board on the willingness level. Here's where it gets really crazy. And thank you, Christy. All right, I'm getting some yeses. The wantingness to fail. And Melissa, I hear you. You're working on it. That's good. That's good. The wantingness to fail. This is where you go to bed at night, might be on any given night, or maybe it's at the end of the week, and you say, you know what? I never heard the word no. Maybe I just was playing it a little too safe. I'm not courageously asking. I'm not executing on those go for no moments when I have the choice. Do I say something? Do I bring this up? Do I reach out to this person or not? And you just say, oh, I'd rather not. The wantingness is when you go to bed at night and you say, I want to hear more no's because I know that when I'm doing that, the yeses are on the other side of that. that when I increase my no's, the yeses are going to be there. That is the wantingness, very powerful. Only about 5% of the people get there. This is where the magic happens, where you really get the connection. And listen, it's not easy. That model that we have been programmed with, that we identify, we talk about in the book, and that I shared at the Sales Bootcamp, this is worldwide. I have heard from people on every continent, speaking all kinds of languages. This is a program that runs through society. It runs through, just like persistence is in our DNA, that desire to not fail runs in our DNA, and not be rejected, that runs in our DNA as well as humans. So this is worldwide. So wantingness is a really next level. That's where we want to get. So, but here's level 4, and this is failing bigger and faster. This is doing it fast. You guys have this blitz. This is where you can get. Do it fast. Tell your story to as many people as you can, as fast as you can. Fail big, fail fast. Go after those big fish. And then you've got level 5, which is failing exponentially as a team. You've got amazing leaders, amazing corporate, backing you up, creating a culture, which I will tell you is extremely enlightened. There are some cultures where they don't want anybody go for no. We don't want anybody to hear no, because they have it backwards, because they're operating off of that old programming. No, we just want to get yes, and don't talk about your failures, and that's something that we should be ashamed of. No. When you are enlightened, you talk about it, because when you talk about it, it doesn't hold power over you. You learn from it and you move through it. You don't avoid it. You move through it, and that's how you get results. So I hope in the Blitz that you think about this model, and wherever you are, if you're at willingness, let's get you to wantingness. If you're at wantingness, let's start you failing bigger and faster, and everybody should be failing exponentially together. That's how you're going to get amazing results. So the next strategy, change your emotional reaction to yes and no. Now, this is tough, because oftentimes when I talk about go for no, which in its essence, in its most basic form, go for no is, to intentionally go out and hear no more often, tell your story to more people. So from that standpoint, people say, oh, I get it. It's just a numbers game. But that is true to some extent. I have to admit it, it's true. But people are not numbers, and we want to build relationships with people, and we want to build connection. So it may be a numbers game, but please understand that doesn't mean that people are numbers. And it doesn't mean that you don't always go for no with your client's best interest in mind at every turn. So with that said, that's the logical part though. But then you have the emotional part, which is, I'm still struggling. This is so hard, right? And go for no from a strategy standpoint is very simple. It's not necessarily easy, but once you start doing it and you give yourself permission to fail, that ability that we had as kids, our parents were like, yeah, keep failing, keep trying to stand up and walk, keep trying to tie your shoe, keep trying to ride the bike, keep trying to learn to read. Yeah, fail, because they knew that that's the secret to us being successful. And then somehow that all gets drummed out of us. So we have to go back to that. So if you find at any point that you're struggling with this, remember to give yourself permission to do these things. Ideally, your reaction to yes and no should be of equal emotional intensity, where you are in the neutral zone. We all tend to celebrate yes. We get so excited. Oh, we got a yes, right? Celebrate. And we get a couple yeses and it's like, oh, this is great. And then we get a couple no's and it's like, oh, that should be depressing. So I'm not very excited about that. And we're on a roller coaster. The yeses are up the roller coaster and the no's are down the roller coaster. And by the way, I live about an hour's drive from Walt Disney World. So I don't know if anybody has been here before, but how many of you have been in a roller coaster? Just type in the chat, yes, if you've been on a roller coaster. And if you have, Rihanna says yes, how do you feel after that ride? Typically, like what's what's kind of the emotion? You might, Vicky says yes, hated it. Brianna said sick. Okay, somebody said adrenaline. Some people love it. Sick. But I'll tell you this, amazing. Someone else was terrified. I would be terrified. I have to go on all the children's rides. I have to go like on It's a Small World and Peter Pan. But here's the thing. We can put ourselves on an emotional roller coaster, and sometimes that can be really exciting, but sometimes it can also be exhausting because we go up and down and up and down. And after a while, it tires us out and we feel like this should be easier, right? This should be easier. So the idea is to get in the neutral zone, where the yeses, we're happy about them. That's ultimately what we want. Those are the results. That's great. But the no's are not bad. The no's give us information, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But the SW mantra, some will, some won't, so what, someone's waiting. If you get that no, there's a tendency from that old programming to think, oh, I've done something wrong. I'm not on the right track. I've talked to the last couple people. I tried to transition them from just being on the product to joining the business, and I'm getting a lot of no's. Something's wrong. I'm going to stop doing that. No. You're on the right path. The reality is that someone is always waiting. There's always someone that you can talk to and tell your story to. And on this blitz, more than anything, remember that so that you just keep moving. And if you get those no's, you just want to keep going, because that's where the diamonds are. Not in allowing yourself to get on that emotional roller coaster, get tired, get exhausted, feel like you're on the wrong path, and that you just want to give up. So remember the SW mantra. And then there's finding value in no. Finding value in no? Well, how could we possibly do that? What's the value in no? Well, there's a couple really valuable things about getting no. And this is why courageously asking is so important. And remember what courageously asking is, or courageously selling, however you want to look at it. It really comes down to it's having the courage to bring up whatever you want to bring up. So it could be transitioning people into and sharing them the opportunity to be a part of your team. It's being willing to do that and understanding that that takes precedence over protecting yourself against getting a no. Now, when I first learned Go for No, I actually thought I was this great salesperson. I really did. And then I had to get honest with myself and say, you know what? I don't like hearing the word no. I want people to like me. I want people to love me. And if somebody tells me no, maybe they won't like me anymore. And then I realized, I finally had the epiphany. I realized that it wasn't about me, that if I wanted to be courageous and brave in my business and get results, I needed to stop focusing on myself and get on with letting other people make the decision. So that's why I talk so much about the idea of courage. So there is hidden value in no's. Now there's kind of two pieces. One is literal value, and one is kind of the hidden value. Can everybody hear me? I think I got muted for just a second. Okay. All right, good. So this graphic, know, like, and trust, right? Christy even brought that up, know, like, and trust. Well, here's what happens when you get a no. When you get a no, you are actually, and I know it doesn't feel this way, but you are actually building a relationship with somebody. It is part of the process. And when you get that no, it actually builds, an N-O builds K-N-O-W. When you get a no, it is part of the process. And it brings you together with that person, because here's the thing. You have the opportunity. You can say, oh, okay, no problem. Do you mind if I check back with you in a couple weeks or in a couple months just to see if anything has changed? That creates that deeper connection. Or you get a no and you say, oh, I'm so surprised because this business seems like it would be so perfect for you. Do you mind if I ask what it is? Is there something that, isn't perfect for you? Is it just a timing issue or whatever? Whatever you do with that, however you take that no lets you develop that N-O-W, so that you develop that trust, so you develop that like. That's so powerful. We think sometimes that hearing no means, oh, that means never. That means relationship cut off. That means I should never ask again. I shouldn't talk to them about it. I'll never bring it up again. That's kind of that old programming running through our head. Actually, there's tremendous value in hearing that no. And also there's literal value. A friend of ours named Lisa Jimenez, she told the story in our Go for No movie that we did several years ago about how she learned to value no. And she literally calculated the dollar value of the no's she heard. And it got to the point where she knew that every time she talked to someone, she made $50. So she literally taped a $50 bill to her phone back in the day when we weren't all texting and it wasn't all social media and it wasn't, Zoom, but she was literally on the phone. And I love what Christy said about being present, having people see you, just absolutely genius. She said, I would tape this $50 and every time I got a no, I would say thanks for the $50. Not to them, right? But to herself, because she understood the connection between having those conversations, having those courageous conversations where she was willing to face that no and not say no for that person, having that courageous conversation, getting that no and saying that has value because if I do this enough, then the yes is going to be worth something. And she figured out for her it was worth $50. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be $500. It could be $5. But there's value there in talking to people. There's value in literal dollar value. And there's value in seeing no, not as the end of a connection. No doesn't have to be the end of a connection. It can be the beginning of a connection. Think about all the no's that your husband and you give each other all day long, or your kids, or your friends, or your parents. I call these safe no's. We know that if we get a no from, right, your husband or your wife, they're not going to divorce you just because you got one no. These are safe no's, and we get used to hearing them. They're very safe. Let's have that same connection in business. Don't see it as a dangerous no. See it as, hey, this is just part of the process. It's part of building that connection. And then final strategy, never prejudge a prospect ever. So I have to tell you how I learned this. When Richard and I quit our corporate jobs and launched our speaking and training company, in part teaching Go for No, I had no idea what I was doing. We were we were now basically B2B. We're calling on businesses and looking to speak, just like I'm doing here with all of you today. And it was tough. I mean, it was hard to get through the door. We're literally cold calling Fortune 1000 companies, mostly here in America. And we found out that there was an event to be held in San Francisco, California. And it was called the American Society for Training and Development. It was a big conference in San Francisco, which, by the way, was not cheap. We were living in Los Angeles, California at the time. And we had to fly. We decided, should we do this? And it was pretty new in our business, and we really were desperate. I mean, we needed some yeses. I don't know if you've ever been there, but we needed some yeses, and we needed them fast because we didn't really have much of a safety net. So we said, well, let's go to this event because we knew that a few of our prospects would be there and maybe we could schmooze and meet people. So fingers crossed. So we bought the tickets to the event. We bought the plane tickets. We got the hotel, all of this in San Francisco. And there we are. It's as luck would have it. And sometimes you get a little bit lucky, but in every piece of luck, you have to show up. So I say that, but there we were at this event, and it was a networking event with the people that were like the suppliers and the people that were the companies. And I was walking around the room and I was so nervous because, as I said, I had no idea what I was doing. We had just launched our company. We really didn't have any clients to speak of. We had the Go for No philosophy. We had all of our sales and customer service and management philosophies, and we had put them in a little book. And at that time, the little book wasn't Go for No. It was called Unlocking the Secrets of Retail Magic. It was for people in retail. And we thought, if we could, let's bring some copies of this book. So I had my books, and I'm walking around the event, and I spot this woman across the room, and I see that her name says Deborah Maston, and I see that she is the vice president of a department store chain here in America called JCPenney. And I have two thoughts that rip through my head simultaneously. One is, oh my gosh, Andrea, that's a huge company. This is amazing. You need to go talk to her. And simultaneously with that thought was, oh my goodness, do not go up and talk to her. You're going to make a fool out of yourself. It's going to be really embarrassing. Don't do it. You're not ready to talk to this woman. Don't do it. But then I had to stop and I had to say, okay, wait a minute. Here we are. This is the moment of truth. This is that go for no moment. Should I get on the airplane and fly home and wonder what would have happened? Or did I spend all this money to come and just have nothing happen, right? So I decided I'm just going to walk up to her. So I walked up to her. I introduced myself. I said, hi, Deborah. I'm Andrea Waltz. Just launched a speaking and training company. We specialize in retail. And I handed her a copy of the book. And she was a powerful executive. I am not kidding. She was powerful. And she was about a foot shorter than me. I'm like 5'6", and I think she was probably, well, maybe she wasn't a foot shorter than me. She was small. She was so tiny, but I have to tell you, she felt like she was 10 feet tall. Like I felt like I was looking up at her, even though I wasn't. And she started flipping through the book. And I learned something right then, by the way, you guys. I learned something. Keep your mouth shut. I wanted to start talking. I wanted to start blabbing, and I didn't. I just kept my mouth shut, and I let her look through the book, and she looked up at me, and she said, this is really interesting. She said, do you guys do distance learning? And I said, oh yeah, absolutely we do distance learning, sure. And she said, all right, well, here's my card. Call me on Monday, and I think that we might be able to work together. And that's kind of how people are, sometimes they make fast decisions. Sometimes they don't, but in this case, she did. But I didn't know what was going to come of it, of course. But I was so excited. I ran around the ballroom because I'm looking for Richard. He was with me. My husband Richard, we split up to meet different people, and I found him, and I said, Richard, you're not going to believe who I just met. I met the vice president with JCPenney. I gave her a copy of the book. She flipped through it. She liked what we have to say. She asked me if we do distance learning, and he said, what's distance learning? And I said, oh, I have no idea. No idea. But we're going to find out. And we did find out, actually. We found out that it is very much like what we do today. This was kind of, I guess, way futuristic, where we went to their corporate offices and got filmed, and it was distributed to all of the locations all over the country. So we ended up getting that business. But here's the thing. I often wonder to myself, I say to myself, what would have happened if I didn't approach Deborah that day? What would have happened if I would have just, in that go for no moment, I just would have said, it's not going to go well. I had so much going against me. In fact, she really took a chance on us and was willing, to trust us. But I realized that if I hadn't have said anything, I think that I wouldn't be here talking to you on doing this program today. I'm not sure our business would have survived, because that relationship that we had with her, as it turned out, it was a great feather in our cap. We were able to go to other companies finally with a client, right? When you're first starting and it's like, thank God you have a customer. So, it gives you some confidence. But so everybody starts at zero. there's always that movement from zero to one always feels so hard. But when you can get there, it's just an amazing feeling. And I know that if I hadn't have done that, that our business, we had a couple months and it probably would have fallen apart and we wouldn't have gone anywhere. So here's the thing. What's the best thing that can happen? One yes can change everything for you, but you've got to go for no to do it. You've got to go for no to do it. That's how you get that one yes to change everything. So the best thing that can happen, the best things that can happen to you guys are out there, but it requires you to have that courage, that bravery, that resilience that's built into your DNA to tap into that and go for no. So I thank you so much for having me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the event. The speakers that you have are just amazing, and I'm so glad that I got to be a part of it.
Oh my goodness, that was just awesome. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing with us the wisdom. I love it all. The willingness, the wantingness, the safe no's. And again, I lived by the some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. There's always somebody else around the door. I just love all of that. Absolutely fantastic. And of course, the gift of the quiz. But the question I have for all of the team is, who's your Deborah? Every single one of you have that person that's actually sitting there at the moment, just waiting for you to ask them, to invite them to take a closer look. Who is your Deborah? And imagine, a year down the track, being able to sit on one of our trainings like Andrea has just done and share that story. I just love that story, Andrea. It was really, really awesome. Thank you so much for blessing our team. You did a beautiful job. I heard you did a fantastic job with the DSA the other day too. So I'm so excited that we've been able to kind of, share more of what you do and the blessing that you bring to the world through teaching all of this around Go for No. It's just been excellent. Thank you so much, darling.
Thank you so much. So fun.
Can we show lots of love in the chat, please, for Andrea? It's been absolutely fantastic. The feedback on my phone has already been brilliant as well. So well done. Thank you so much.